Good morning and welcome to the CartoPac iOS for Gas Distribution webinar. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. My name is Teresa Chavez. I'm a sales executive with CartoPac. And before we get started, I wanted to make sure that you can hear me clearly and that you can see the CartoPac title page. Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much. So just a little bit of housekeeping. We will have a question and answer session at the end, and feel free to submit your questions at any time during the webinar. We will also be recording the webinar and we'll make this available to you via email and also on our website. Today, our presenter is Glenn Glass, co-founder and vice president of marketing and product management. Glenn?
Good morning. So we oftentimes get to ask the question, why iOS, and being able to extend our mobile platform to support these devices. And really comes down to customers are saying it needs to be the device that's on the people, on the field workforce when they're out of the field. And by that, it may be a phone, it may be a high accuracy GPS, it may be a tablet, but they really said that we need a mobile technology that will work on the devices that people have out in the field. Another key thing is that they don't want to be limited to just a few devices. They want to have the flexibility to have one solution to support many different devices, but also within those devices, one solution to support many different workflows. We also want to be able to complement devices that are already out in the field that may be doing an advanced workflow like a high accuracy GPS or a laser rangefinder, a line locator, and be able to support those other applications and use flows out in the field. If we look at a common deployment within kind of we see within our clients, is there's usually an Esri ArcGIS for server that's connected to a geodatabase, and the data from the server goes out to the field on a range of devices. Well, some of the things that make CartoPac for iOS unique is the fact is that we can support both an Esri geodatabase, but we can also within that same mobile solution support other non-spatial databases within the application. So not all data has to be in the GIS. Another key piece is how do the solutions get built? And we'll touch on this a little bit later in the webinar, but the ability to configure these solutions to work with these multiple databases, to have advanced forms controls, be able to author those and then publish those to the server, and have a common set of functionality available so that if it's working on a Windows tablet, it has a very similar feature set on an iOS device as it would on a Trimble. We also look at companies putting more and more emphasis on the quality and the integrity of the data being collected in the field. So we have a product called CartoPac Workflow Manager, and regardless of which device is being used to collect the data, we can put a structured process on all incoming data from all the devices, and now companies can configure a structured process that brings the data in from the field, has notifications, that he's able to go through and inform other users of issues found in the field, be able to interface with other technologies using scripting and geoprocessing, being able to do things like GPS post-processing for the tablets and the Trimbles, and that you would also have a complete audit trail for all of that information as it comes back into your organization. Another key thing is being able to have true cross-platform support so that one solution can support iOS, can support iPads, iPhones, can support a Windows 7, 8, and 10 tablet, and can support a Windows mobile device like what you see here in Trimble. So these 4 areas that are circled really are not focused just on iOS, but it shows the value of adding iOS to the CartoPac platform. Within the gas industry, we're being used by a number of operators out in the field, generating high-value results. And there are templates that are available that can be used for gas utilities that can be leveraged from, that can work with all the devices that I've mentioned. So we have as-built construction for both plastic and steel. We have tracking and traceability supporting the barcode scanning of the device, of the pipe and fittings. Being able to do OQ field verification, so being able to get an update of the data set from the field, from the office, and being able to verify that that person is certified to do that work in the field. Being able to do directional drill or boreholes, where you're able to map the sections of pipe, you'll be able to collect a profile. You can pull that pipe through that bore, trim it, and be able to then calculate automatically where all the fusions are, where the different pipe segments are, and tie that into either the service or the main. We work on retirements and replacements, where you're able to identify the begin point of the retirement, the end point of the retirement, and be able to then back in the server have a geo-process through CartoPac Workflow Manager that takes all the assets between the beginning point and the ending point for the retirement, changes the status of all related assets, and changes the symbology, and puts that back into GIS so that you know clearly what has been retired in the system. Being able to do DOT inspections out in the field. Being able to do leak mapping, where based on different state standards, you can identify where that first recording is, be able to go through a workflow that specifies where you need to do additional readings, get that leak classified in the field, and have that go back into the GIS. So let's talk specifically about CartoPac for iOS. And in looking here on the picture to the left is our basic map view, so that you've got your map icons, you've got data summary, you've got barcode, and then you have your options. We also have editing capabilities where you're able to, for linear and polyline features, you can select different vertexes, you can delete those, you can move them within the feature editing toolbar. Same for polygons. You can also select a vertice of an existing legacy data and move it to your current position with GPS. Within the options screen, this is how you get access to the correct server. So we have our projects, so you can have multiple projects on the server. You're able to select your background map type between standard, which is a street view, hybrid, which is a combination of street view and satellite, and pure satellite. You can also specify your maximum AOI, and this really determines how much data will be downloaded to the device. And you can configure the ability to scan and decode a barcode within the iOS device, and we'll show that later on. I've also shown here an example of the server where you're able to target the specific server URL. You can have either have it be a password login, and we're also working on implementing browser-based authentication for the application. Then you enter your username and password, and you have access to the solution. So let's go ahead and do kind of a live demo. And so Teresa's going to switch me to presenter. All right, so what I've got is I've got an iPad here, and I'm set up in the options menu. I'm going to select on So I'm going to select download project, and it gives us a list of the projects that are on here, so we can see that we have different applications here. I'm going to select gas distribution and click download, and I can give it an alternate project name. And so what this does is I may want to put several projects down on the device that are the same, but maybe they're in different geographies or different areas. I'm going to do this gas distribution webinar, and that downloads that. That's taking that project and it's downloading it from the server to my device, and I click on OK. You can see I have the map view here. I can zoom in. You can see the area of interest that I downloaded data. I've got the common gestures. I have GPS up in the top there, and I can go to the options menu and I can change my map here to satellite, and then it'll go bring in the satellite imagery for the area that I'm working on. If I go disconnected with the workflow, it will take the imagery that I have here that I've downloaded, and that imagery will be available when I'm disconnected out in the field. Up in the upper right here, I have the plus button, which is going to be I'm going to add. And in this solution here, for this, we are allowed two options. So we see the standard iOS type of controls down in the bottom, where you're able to scroll through a list of options. You select what you want and say done. And in this example, I'm going to go ahead and do a creative job of mapping a distribution main here from within our office. So I'm going to click here and do the best I can in the center of this road, going along as I get here. And this is my distribution main. Once I'm done with that, I click on the GPS here, and it brings up a set of forms. A couple of things on the forms here is that you see is that there are tabs along the bottom, which allows us to do larger workflows and to be able to subset that data and the data collection efforts into logical areas. I'm going to click on the installation date. We're going to say we're going to take our current date and time, enter that. If there was a lot number, a manufacturer, I'm going to just click through a couple of these. We click here and say material, and let's say I say coated steel, but I see grayed out over there as plastic type. But I can go back in there and say plastic, and now plastic type becomes available, and I can select from that option. So that's kind of one example of how we do some forms control or forms logic. I'm going to click on tab 2 down here, and we could say we could add a valve. We could add a controllable fitting. We could add a non-controllable fitting. We could add a photo, or we could add comments. And the top there is where you see the title there up in the upper left. So I'm going to go back here and I'm going to add a controllable fitting. And what this is showing is something unique to CartoPac is being able to have a spatial-to-spatial relationship. I'm collecting information within that distribution main, and from in that workflow, I can add another spatial feature in there. So I click on add. Oh, tells me that I didn't do a good job of collecting my data. Takes me to the area here, and I'm going to say that this is active. Have that, and I'm going to go back to my controllable fitting, click add, brings up the map here, and I'm going to put in my controllable fitting, brings up the installation date, the material. I'm just going to put in the status here that this is also active. Within that, I could take a photo, I could do different things. I'm going to click OK, and now we see that I have my controllable fitting that's been added here. Now I'm going to go back in and I'm going to add a service. Let's say we have a service going out here to this house. Click on Done here, brings up the forms associated with it. I'm going to go here and I'm going to remember that I need to add status. And I'm going to go here and I'm going to add a photo. So we're going to see how the weather is here in lovely Fort Collins. So I'm going to use the photo that we took, give it a name, and this is the dentist office, so I've collected that photo associated with that service that's been put in. So very quickly here, just to summarize, we've been able to have forms for distributions and mains. We have related information that can be collected there. We're leveraging off of some of the advanced features in CartoPac as far as the spatial-to-spatial relationships. Took a photo, and then I'm going to synchronize that data back to the server. So I'm going to click on the Synchronize button. So anywhere where I have connectivity, data can be uploaded back to the server. And then all the other data that's been uploaded during that time, so if we had multiple crews, so we see our data there, but I can also go and see the data that just I have collected. If I was to log in as a different user, I would see other information there within the system. Okay. I'm going to click on Data Summary, and we can see here is that I have a fitting type here that's been fitting type with the status active. If I look at my distribution main, oops. I can get access to that data, and I'm just going to jump back into the map view. All right, so we finished kind of the full loop demo of the iOS. If you have questions, go ahead and log in, send those in, and we'll get to those at the end of the presentation. So let's talk about CartoPac Studio, which CartoPac Studio is the tool that allows us to author these solutions. And really, this is one of the key advantages. There's a lot of once it's on the device, there's, a lot of the applications are relatively similar, but we really look as far as what is the process for being able to configure and deploy a solution. So within CartoPac Studio, key things that it allows you to do, it allows you to build those custom forms, allows you to integrate with databases, and like we talked about earlier, it allows you to integrate with databases, both the GIS databases and non-GIS databases, and allows you to really just streamline and apply an art to really improving the productivity, getting field user adoption, and all of this is done within a configuration environment. So I'm going to open up Studio here real quick and give you a quick look as far as what that tool is able to do. All right, all right, Technology Gymnastics 101 there. So this is Studio, so it looks very similar to other developments, and I have my Solution Explorer here. What we're able to do here is we can say, what are the databases that I want to have? And so I can add a database. And so This is how we can connect to multiple databases. Once you add your database, then you can select the tables within that database that are going to be transferred down for the field solution. And you can go down and even select the individual attributes. So CartoPac Studio gives you a lot of control of saying, here's what my enterprise system is, and then I can optimize my mobile solution for just what I need to have. So in here we see our geodatabase. We have our features that are in here. We have our domains. And then let me go ahead. So the 4 primary things that Studio does is connections to the database, allows you to set up kind of what does your user's interface and display look like, allows you to have your forms and configure and author those forms, allows you to have validation, and then once this is complete, then you can publish it to a server. So you're able to go through the complete process, you're able to validate that everything is working correctly, and then when you're done, then you publish that to the server. So I'm going to look at UI and display here, and we can see I have a point feature, controllable fittings, non-controllable fittings, and gas valves, and I have the 2 linear features here being the distribution main and service. If I look at the distribution main and I wanted to change the color on it, I could go in and select, here's the color. I want to change that to, I change it to hot pink for Matt, but I don't know if he'd appreciate that. So we have it, we can change the color here, being able to look at it. And then we also can see in here what is the forms libraries that are associated with that. So I'm going to switch over here to the Forms Explorer view. And we have a solution called gas distribution. And that has the forms built out. And when we talked about templates for high priority workflows for gas distribution assets, we have pre-configured templates that you can use and leverage from that have best practices, that shows how that it works best in the field, different things to meet regulatory compliance. So within gas distribution, I have the forms here. I have a forms for a service, a controllable fitting, a non-controllable fitting, a valve, distribution main, an attachment, and that is where photos get attached, but also this is where we see that if the employee is going to add a welder certificate or other information out in the field, that's where it can be done. When we look at within the service, we can see that we can support both a quarter VGA portrait, which that is really what's going to work on the phone. That's also what's going to work on a Trimble screen. But we also see is in the same one, we're also showing that the same tool would author a tablet-based form. So that's going to be for your Windows devices. So one solution here, you can author the forms in the different formats, and then we auto-detect as that device hits the server, we know which version of the forms to be able to deploy. So now I'm going to look at here and enter quarter VGA, and I'm going to look as far as the preview. Can adjust this. So this is our forms that we had for the service. We see our different tabs here, and in this case they happen to be on top. For iOS, they're on the bottom. Look at here, and if I wanted to change the label of the tab, I can change it to be tab 1. Click on it, and we see that it's resulted within the form. I can then look as far as here's all of the different controls here. So we have installation date, we have lot number, we have controls on top for moving these around, for sizing them, for really maximizing the layout of what's there. And we also have a wide range of types that are available within this. So Within our forms, we can have a decoder for the plastic pipe and fittings. So this allows us to grab a barcode off of plastic pipe and to be able to decode it against the ASTM standard and to be able to populate all those attributes that are within that inside of the forms. We have attachments, we have boreholes, which allows us to be able to configure the workflows for being able to do the borehole where you specify the different points and it does the calculation of the borehole. Others include calculated area, the length and perimeter, checkbox, a coordinate, which allows us to be able to display a lat long. So sometimes when we're working with other solutions, we don't embed the geometry just within the spatial feature, that you can also get the lat long, which is often required with different forms or reports. We can specify our drop-downs, and we can also do what we would call a dependent drop-down, which I showed you an example of when I picked what is the pipe type. If I picked one option, it allowed me to not have, it didn't specify it. And if I picked plastic, then it gave us a dependent drop-down to pick either plastic or PVC or polyurethane. Thanks, Matt. Picture control. Range is being used by one gas utility where they're using laser rangefinders and allows them to, when it's in a, we call it magnetically hostile environment, which means there's a lot of construction equipment in the area, they can still get an accurate laser reading using the range. So this gives you really just a quick overview of Studio. Once I'm done here with the tools, I can validate it, and then I can publish the solution to the web services. So I go ahead, I set up my database connections, I auto-generate my forms, I go through Studio and maximize the workflow, get it set up in the right order. I add my intelligence to those. When I'm done, I can see down here I have 0 in the validation errors. I have 0 errors. Validate that, and then I'm ready for it to go. I publish it into the server, and then that solution's ready for use in the field. So I want to talk a little bit about how we deploy these solutions, because that's also a real strength in our flexibility to deploy into different environments. So we work with our clients oftentimes of going on-premise, where we install CartoPac, we configure it with their different systems, work within their IT environment, and that's a very common way for us to deploy the technology. We also have CartoPac Core, which is a very, it's a very robust hosted solution that has Esri ArcGIS for Server installed. It's a Microsoft Azure instance. It has the CartoPac Server, CartoPac Workflow Manager, and CartoPac Studio on the server. We have data management utilities for being able to get data from your GIS environment up to that hosted environment, and then on demand be able to bring that data back in to your on-premise system for use with other applications. And then again, true cross-platform support on the mobile devices. So it can support the Windows tablets, support the iOS, support the Trimble, all within one offering. This gets spun up, and oftentimes with clients, we use this kind of as a proof of concept. Allows us to start generating results very quickly. We can put one or multiple of our pre-configured options, pre-configured solutions up there. So for example, if you wanted to have a barcode for plastic pipe ready to go and an as-built construction for gas utilities, those could be set up there. You would upload your data to that server. We would use Studio and do some mapping to your data to the solution, and you'd probably be ready to go out in the field, start collecting data within 1 to 2 days. So we've covered a lot of information here, and I also wanted to just share is that pretty much the solution that I showed you on the server here, you guys can go out and demo it. So there's free trials of CartoPac for iOS. You go to our website, you click on software, and there's a free trial version there. If you look at the top option there, it's download CartoPac mobile for iOS. That takes you to the Apple Store where you basically you can download CartoPac for iOS. And when you sign up for that, when we also send you credentials to log into a server, gives you access to upload, download, collect data, and to be able to see how that interfaces with some of our other tools like Workflow Manager, and there's also some videos on how Studio works. So it gives you a really good hands-on example of how CartoPac for iOS works. But the other thing, it gives you an idea of what the technology can do, and you may say, great, I love what it does, but I want to see it work in this environment or that. It also opens up the dialogue for us to start talking about solutions very specific to your requirements. So to summarize here, CartoPac is a complete solution that works across a broad range of devices. So across the bottom there, you see that we've got a Trimble R1. That can be connected to an iOS device, and you can get sub-meter and sub-foot GPS accuracy through iOS. Shows that we have Windows tablet versions and that we have iOS, both phone and tablet. Shows a barcode scanner so that we can interface with scanning those plastic pipe and fittings and populating that information within the forms. I'll show you here in just a minute how that works, and we're extending functionality that we already have for Windows and Windows Mobile to work with the iOS. Shows that we've got the GPS accuracy, got the different sensors that we can support. So really, it is one software that can support many solutions within your organization.
So at this time, if you have any questions, we'd like to go ahead and get some of those answered. And we do have one. So for plastic type, does it only record it as polyethylene, or will it show the exact material?
So our demos are designed to be pretty simplistic. And so one is that those drop downs are configured to come either out of a list that you configure, or it can come out of a database domain. So when you click on that, if you say, I want it to be this list, then that can be, you can enter it into your drop-down forms control, or you can do a query to say, please take that list and show it out of a database domain. We can also add different levels of dependency within that as well.
Wonderful. Are there any other questions that would like to be submitted and answered? We'll give it a few minutes to allow people to ask some questions. In the meantime, I wanted just to make available to you the CartoPac contacts. You can feel free to reach out to myself or to Glenn, and we'd be happy to assist in solving your business problems.
So I'm going to have Teresa switch this back over here. I'm going to, can you exit out of here? So I'm going to show my screen here. Review full screen. So I'm going to say done. And I have an option down here on my phone, and if you notice here, this is basically a development build that we're working on, but I have another option here called barcode reader, and I get that close to the plastic pipe, and it scanned it, and you can see that it populated, against the ASTM standard, and it's been able to scan that for that plastic pipe. I'm going to tap to scan again, and here's a fitting, and it gives us the code against that ASTM standard. That then would go to the CartoPac forms, and all the attributes would be populated within there, but it allows you to use your iOS device as a scanner out in the field.
Wonderful. We have one additional question. Will this solution be developed for Android?
We're paying attention to what the market is wanting to see right now. From most of our large corporate customers, what is being requested has been iOS at first, but we try to be very responsive to the market, and if there's a demand from the industry for an Android solution, then we would start pursuing that at that time.
Okay. And we have another question. Was the app created to scan the barcode developed by CartoPac or a download from the App Store?
So we are integrating another technology that would be within the CartoPac app that would be downloaded from the store. We would have a version that would have this application that I showed for scanning would be built into the CartoPac application and then available from the Apple Store.
Okay. I'll give it a few more seconds if there are any additional questions that anyone would like to ask. Okay. Well, that concludes our webinar today. I want to thank you for joining us, and feel free to contact myself or Glenn for any additional questions. And as I mentioned, the webinar will be recorded and sent to you via email and also available out on our website. Thank you so much for joining.